Hello, Virgo. This is your personal month forecast for November of 2023. I wanted to start out the month by just talking about where the general focus is. First of all, this is kind of a side note, but it's sort of fun. Venus has been transiting through Virgo, so that's good news for you. You are Virgo. Venus is transiting through your sign, so that's really great because you are connecting with that Venusian energy more readily, and you have been over the last few weeks. So this means that you may have appeared more attractive than usual, which is kind of fun. Not just physically, but also like your essence, your energy is more pleasurable, more desirable than perhaps it typically is right now. So that's a lot of fun. You can definitely have a lot of enjoyment and pleasure. You may also have just been focusing more on what you find pleasurable, what you value, things like that. However, the main focus is still on Scorpio because, as you can see, we're starting out the month with Sun, Mars, and Mercury all in Scorpio. This is really heavy, intense energy. However, you live and breathe heavy, intense energy. This is something that you deal with all the time, your whole life. So yes, there has been so much heaviness. We're just getting out of eclipse season, which was mostly affecting, the new moon solar eclipse was in Libra, but then that full moon lunar eclipse that we just had on October 28th, that was highlighting the Scorpio Taurus axis. So it was very heavy. However, again, these are fellow yin signs. You deal with a heavy energy. And so I do think that you may have been one of the signs that was more so embracing these changes over the last few weeks. It may have not felt like it, but you may have been actually thriving over the last few weeks, if that makes sense. You may have been adapting to these changes very readily. A different way of approaching this would be to say that Sun, Mars, and Mercury, they're all in Scorpio at the start of the month. So this is your third house. This means that you may be very busy, especially when it comes to short distance travel and your social connections, specifically like casual relationships. So this is, neighbors, friends, siblings, coworkers, whoever you kind of see on a daily basis. All these types of things. This is where, you may have been having a lot more of those conversations, those connections, and you may have just recently experienced a lot of change in that area as well. Okay, so that's generally the focus. As we start the month, Mercury's in the third house, showing a lot of busyness, learning, communication in that area. Sun shows the general focus is there, and Mars shows you may have been more driven or more ambitious when it comes to your social connections, as well as just, whatever is going on in your town or city, neighborhood, etc. That's where the focus has generally been. All right. Okay, but I wanted to give you some specific key dates on some developments or some changes that will occur throughout the month here. So the first date is November 4th, which I'm showing the chart for now. This is the day where Saturn turns direct at 0 degrees Pisces. This is particularly impactful for you because Pisces is, of course, your opposing sign, right? It's your 7th house. So Saturn turning direct there means that you may have increased pressure and responsibility going forward, specifically with your relationships. So this isn't so much those like neighborly relationships that I was just talking about. This is those one-on-one relationships, things that are a bit more intimate. Any kind of romantic relationship, that's what I'm talking about here, or any kind of partnership at all, any kind of business partnership, best friend, whatever that is. That's where you may have increased responsibility, pressure, increased heaviness. In a way, you may, like over the last few weeks, you may have learned a lot in that area, specifically about the past and your friendships, things that you may have overlooked, you may have become aware of over the last few weeks with Saturn retrograde in your 7th house. So now is the time to apply that increased awareness. Can you be more mature or more responsible with your relationship? What are the responsibilities and obligations of those relationships? These are the things that are heavy in nature, but they're going to be more kind of in your face. They're going to be more relevant going forward after November 4th. So on the minus side, it may bring a lot of like heaviness and intensity to your personal relationships. But on the plus side, this may be a great time for getting more realistic with those partnerships. Do they work for you? Is there room for improvement there? It's all about give and take, right? So are your relationships balanced? Are you truly hearing those people in your life, and are they hearing you? Okay, that's what it's all about. Okay, moving forward to November 8th, this is the day where Venus leaves Virgo and enters Libra. I know that's really sad. I almost heard like almost like a crying like reaction, if that makes sense. Because yes, unfortunately, it is really nice having Venus in your own sign. That's a lot of fun. It's so pleasurable. You can enjoy that like boost of charisma during that time. But now that is changing. It's not all bad though. So now Venus is entering Libra, which is your second house. What I find is that whenever you have Venus in your second house, you tend to make more money, or you tend to find some kind of abundance more readily. But you may also be spending more money as well, specifically on luxurious items or pastimes that increase the pleasure and enjoyment of your life, right? So, I mean, depending on the situation, that may or may not be a bad thing, depending on, your natal placements and other things going on. You may be more or less on one side of that spectrum. You may be making more than you're spending, or you may be spending more than you're making, if that makes sense. I think the best way to use this transit is enjoy that increased prosperity or abundance that often comes with it. And I think it may be wise to, use those resources if it's appropriate. Of course, use your own discernment, but we have to use our resources to find some kind of pleasure in life, right? What's the point of life if we don't ever treat ourselves, if we don't have some kind of pleasure? You don't always have to spend money to do that, by the way, but so I would say, obviously don't go crazy. You are Virgo, you are practical, you're frugal. But yeah, if it's appropriate, treat yourself, right? Maybe invest in something that, as long as it will truly make your life more enjoyable and more pleasurable, and as long as you have the resources for it, maybe invest in something, like that. And now, going forward after November 8th, may be a good time for that for you, okay? So in a nutshell, making more money going forward, but also potentially spending more money as well. Okay, November 10th. Now Mercury changes signs. So this is kind of interesting. We just had Venus changing signs 2 days ago. Now Mercury leaves Scorpio and enters Sagittarius. I think this is kind of interesting because Mercury, Mars, and the Sun have all been kind of hanging out together. They've been in the same place for the last several weeks. They've really been highlighting Scorpio, right? That intensity, that heavy energy, but it's something that you've been able to kind of relate with and cope with. So now, one by one, each of these throughout the month are going to gradually enter Sagittarius. So Mercury is the first to do so. As Mercury enters Sagittarius, it just indicates a shift in the intellectual focus. So what are you thinking about, communicating about, learning about? What are you busy with? For the past few weeks, it's been more focused on those social connections that I talked about. Now with Mercury entering Sagittarius, you're going to want to bring it home more so. And again, increasingly throughout the month, the focus is going to become on bring it home. Let's go back to the basics. Let's focus more on what is familiar to you, right? And I want to be careful in what I say, because we still have Sun and Mars in Scorpio. There's still an emphasis on those third house, neighborly connections, short distance travel, etc. But on November 10th, with Mercury entering Sagittarius, it just shows that you may be more busy at home or with family or with pastimes or people that are very familiar to you. So usually that's home and family, but it could also be other areas as well. Whatever is very familiar to you. These are the things that you'll be thinking about, learning about, you'll be busy with after November 10th, basically. Oh, one last thing about that too. As these planets enter Sagittarius doesn't just indicate more of a home focus for you. It also indicates tension because Sagittarius squares Virgo, right? So basically there's the edginess, the anxiety to some extent, but also the potential for change will gradually increase as we get those planets moving into Sagittarius. So that is beginning to kind of happen on November 10th. Excuse me. Okay, November 13th, we get a new moon in Scorpio at 20 degrees. So this is actually the chart for that new moon in Scorpio. And like I said, yes, Scorpio is really heavy energy. It's not the easiest, I think, for most people to deal with. However, you are Virgo. You are a little bit similar in some kind of way. You also have, you deal with this kind of heavy energy as well. So this is something I do think you'll be able to embrace and adapt to very readily. Specifically, this new moon is in your third house. So I always say new moons, just like they sound like they're a new beginning. And they're also a great time for reevaluating your intentions. I think we should all be more mindful of our intentions all the time, but especially on a new moon. If you're going to neglect your intentions most of the time, at least check in with them on the new moon. That's the least I can ask for you. Okay. Because this is it is a time of a new beginning, but not so much so in the sense where you're like taking some kind of huge action or launching some kind of project. This is a quiet beginning. It's a humble beginning. Okay. That's typically how new moons are for us. This is a time for planting that seed. So what are your intentions? You can think about any of your intentions right now, make some kind of new intention or goal, but especially when it comes to your social relationships, again, those friendships, acquaintances, coworkers, siblings, short distance travel, those kind of habits that it's very casual, it's very mundane. What are your like day-to-day experiences, and especially socially? Is there room for change? Is there room for improvement? Or are there certain aspects of your life that you would just like to maintain? Reevaluate those intentions, because now is the time of, manifesting these types of things. That's pretty much it. Okay, Wednesday, November 22nd. So we're jumping forward now to the 22nd, and this is the day where Sun leaves Scorpio and enters Sagittarius. So by now, the focus is very much shifting to Sagittarius more so than Scorpio. We've got Mercury there as well as the Sun. Sun has joined Mercury. So not only is the intellectual focus, learning, communicating, there's busyness in terms of your, home and family, but also with the Sun there, now just the whole general focus is there. Your activity is there. Your energy is there. You're just naturally kind of prioritizing and shifting more to, let's spend more time at home. Let's spend more time with family or whoever you live with. Whoever's most familiar to you, that's where the focus is going to be. That's where you're communicating, spending your time. That's where you have energy, etc., etc. One last thing about that too. I'm sorry. Let's go back. So the other way of looking at it as well, again, Sagittarius squares Virgo. So you may have increased like irritability, anxiety, restlessness, but you don't have to. Just, you're entering a time where things are kind of ripe for change. This may be a great time for making some kind of change, starting something new, specifically with home and family, but this could also apply to any area of life as well. Okay, these Sagittarius placements are kind of pushing you and provoking you to take some kind of action or make some kind of change. All right, so it doesn't have to be stressful. This could be inspiring. This could be a lot of fun as long as you're up for that change and taking some kind of action. All right. Okay, going forward to Friday, November 24th. Now we have Mars entering Sagittarius as well. So now all three of these pals, these buddies that are hanging out together, they're all in Sagittarius. So now we have little to no focus on Scorpio anymore. Honestly, for you, I think that's mixed news. Because again, it just shows even more of a focus on home and family, your foundation, etc. Specifically with Mars there's more of a drive. There's, you may be more goal-oriented with your home, family, foundation, etc. So I mean, that's kind of mixed news, but also again, these three planets, if we can call the Sun a planet, they're forming squares to whatever Virgo placements you have. So that's where the tension comes in. But like I just said, it doesn't have to be tense. You are great when it comes to making improvements and adapting to change, right? So tap into that, utilize those strengths that you have as a Virgo, because now is the time for change. In a way, it's kind of weird how this sits for you, because I mean, all of October was eclipse season. There was tons of change then, but in a way, this is almost in a very different way. It's also pushing you to make change as well, just by the very nature of how these Sagittarius placements are aspecting your Virgo placements. All right. Last thing I want to talk about today is November 27th, Monday. This is a full moon. It will happen at 4 degrees Gemini, and the moon is opposing the Sun at 4 degrees Sagittarius. So I always say the full moon, it's not just about the moon, it's about the Sun and the moon and that axis, that opposition that they make to each other. So in this case, Sun at 4 degrees Sagittarius, moon at 4 degrees Gemini. It's about the Sagittarius-Gemini axis. This is gonna be a really crazy full moon for you. I'm just gonna put it out there. This is gonna be chaotic. You're gonna feel, everything's changing. There's just random weird stuff happening. It's gonna be chaotic. The reason for that is because the sun and the moon are squaring whatever Virgo placements you have. So you've heard me talk about these squares from Sagittarius. Now the sun and the moon from different directions are both squaring you. So we've got an opposition as well as two squares to whatever Virgo placements you have. So in other words, these are tense aspects, yes, but I would encourage you to not look at them as bad. They're just pushing you to make change. That's all it is. It's change. We may not like change. It may be disconcerting. But change is necessary. On some level, you are all about adapting and improving and making change. So yes, it may be chaotic. This change may be a little bit more fast paced than what you'd prefer. However, we got to roll with the punches. You got to adapt to it. Maybe just kind of like ride this roller coaster with a little bit of detachment and then do your best to, adapt to those changes. I know you will, because that's how you are anyway, right? So yeah, kind of a crazy day. Specifically, this is affecting your 3rd and 9th houses. So this could be a really great time for maybe making new connections. And I mean that has multiple meanings. I mean, maybe making new social connections, but you could also make new connections in your mind as well, connecting new ideas, learning something new. On an abstract level, that's what this full moon is about. But on a more tangible level, it's going to be just like chaos. Okay. So I want to be very real in telling you what to expect. All right. Okay. And that's basically what I have. I want to end this by just talking about how dramatically different the chart is by the end of the month compared to the beginning. At the beginning, it was such a heavy chart. Which again, that's something that you thrive with. So kudos to you. At the beginning we had Sun, Mercury, Mars, and Scorpio with Venus and Virgo. Very heavy energies, but also energies that are kind of similar to what you naturally work with, right? Compare that to the end of the month. This chart, for example, where Mars, Sun, and Mercury are all in Sagittarius, and then Venus is in Libra. So how do I put this? Like, these are objectively, I would say, easier energies to work with for most people. This is fun energy. It's celebration. It's holiday energy, Sagittarius season. But for you, it's kind of difficult, because it's pushing you to make some kind of change, to take some kind of action. All right. So kind of a mixed bag, to be totally honest, for you. But I hope this helps you or was interesting for you. And yeah, have a great month, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you for watching.